Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Keep Indiana Learning. I'm so happy that you are here with us today as we discuss Chapter 7 in our book study series, Keep Indiana Reading Digital for Good Edition. This chapter explores what it means to be alert, staying safe, protecting privacy, and understanding how to respond to threats online and making sure that our children are well equipped to do so as well. My name is Melissa Wally, and I'm an innovation coach with Keep Indiana Learning and an ed tech specialist with Hanover Community Schools in Cedar Lake, Indiana. I also serve on the HEC board here in Indiana. I want to give a quick reminder before we start that this book study series can be found on the Keep Indiana Learning YouTube channel, along with several other book studies that are amazing. But for now, let's get back to our introductions. And of course, we have Diana here today.
Hi, everybody. I am Diana Knox. I am a technology instructional specialist with Clay Community Schools in Brazil, Indiana. I work as an innovation coach with Keep Indiana Learning. I'm an ISTE and a Canvas certified educator, and I'm a Canvas community coach. And I was recently elected to go back and serve a second term on the HEC board. So I'm very excited to join you today and have this discussion. And today we are very excited to have Brenny with us. So, Brenny.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Brenny Coomer, and I'm the Assistant Director of EdTech for BCSC in Columbus, Indiana. I'm the president-elect for Indiana Connected Educators and a part of Keep Indiana Learning with these two fabulous ladies. And I am so excited to dig into this chapter and its topics. It's very relevant. I feel like the whole book is, but this chapter specifically was like very connected to several meetings and things I had today.
Yeah, it seems like this is a topic that I feel like is coming up a lot again, isn't it? So this chapter opens up with the terms and the concepts of online safety and digital citizenship being used interchangeably at times. And I think we can all agree that we've probably heard this in conversations as well. The goal for parents and educators is to keep our children safe. And online safety and privacy, they go hand in hand for that. And I like the way that Mr. Collada grouped them together with the term alert, because I really think that's what it boils down to. Whether we're in physical spaces or online spaces, it's a good idea to always be alert to your surroundings. And we need to be alert as we navigate those online spaces, no matter our age. Um, I know I had a conversation with my mom recently about something that she said, I just wasn't sure about this. And I said, that's because it wasn't good. And we kind of had some conversations about things that she could look for. So it's not just our kids. Sometimes we have to, parent our parents, as I say, in my case. But we are being careful and purposeful in those online spaces. Um, as alert digital citizens. And the analogy of the nuclear power plant, he's so good at these analogies. And I really liked this one as well. It seemed kind of extreme at first, but the message is very clear. It's easier to protect ourselves and our children against online danger rather than try to repair damage and clean up a mess after the fact. So be prepared, be proactive.
Yeah, and I agree with you about that term alert. It goes back to just what makes sense for kids, like, and all of us actually, like, we get into these terms and what does this mean and what does that mean, but we all know what alert means. It's like that inside voice, and what is that inside voice telling you, and being alert, we know what that means. And I think the more that we can use terms and phrases with children that make sense to them, the better it is. But back to that nuclear power plant, I agree with you. I felt like that was kind of extreme. I was like, where are we going with this? He is so good with these analogies, and they always make sense. I love a good analogy. And going back to that, we want to make sure that we're protecting our nuclear power plant. And then I was like, okay, I'm getting it now. Like, we have this nuclear power plant, and now we have to protect it. And in this case, we have to protect our children. And so then he goes into these like, how do we need to protect this power plant? And the first way is with technical protection. And so we have our web filters, and we have our device filters, and we have our parental controls, and we can have all these things, but we also have to enable them and monitor them in order for them to be effective. It's not just like this passive safety feature that you click on and then it's done. And I think that's an important thing to remember. And then also that physical protection doesn't end there, because we also have to remember that we have to limit device access. And I really liked this part because I always try to think back. My kids are older now. I've said that before. But we now have this benefit of doing a gradual release to access of a device, and we could first do the device and then the apps and the internet and functionality, and all of that is a way to teach children how to become comfortable with responsible use. And Mr. Claudia compares that experience, and here's another analogy, with learning to drive. And we don't just hand keys over to 16-year-olds and say, here you go, have a great night. There's this long process of teaching and mentoring. And it even begins before you're teaching them how to drive, because they're sitting in the car and watching. And using a device can be the same, because children can access a phone or tablet with limited access, limited apps, and no internet, and then gradually gain those additional functions as conversations and modeling take place. And I think how long that process takes and how it unfolds depends upon many different things. And then once those apps and websites like YouTube are approved, we also have to think about autoplay and things like that, because with autoplay, who's deciding what that next video is? And do we want it to be someone other than us as a parent, or in place of a classroom as a teacher? Um, and then as I think about that, sorry, I'm just going to continue for a minute. But there are some thoughts on waiting until like the specific magic age to give a child a device, or having this consistent rollout plan that's prescribed and ready to go. And it would be really nice if we had this magic um, 8 ball that could predict what's right for everyone. But I think that, like, for me personally, my parenting and teaching style has always been one that depended upon the need of each individual child. And maybe it's even different for the children in the same household. And I tend to think that the same philosophy would apply here. If I could go back and turn back time with my adult children who were getting devices as they were released, I would have to make all the technology decisions based on the needs and readiness of my children, not based on like what somebody was saying, like wait until this specific date. I would want to wait until I felt like they were ready. And maybe it would be sooner than an expert thought, and maybe it would be after. I don't know, because I can't turn back time.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you have shared, Melissa. I love the analogies in this chapter. I'm actually very thankful for the keys to the car drivers analogy. I was doing a presentation today to some community members, and they asked a lot of questions about this, and I was like, wow, it's a really good thing I just reread this chapter last night, so it was pretty fresh, and they loved that analogy. So now I'm going to steal that and use it everywhere. But I agree with you that I think sometimes it's very dependent on your family and your child and their maturity level and what you think they're ready for. But I love the idea of the gradual release, and that it's okay to put limits, right? It might not be the cool thing to do, it might not be a popular or fun thing to do, but ultimately, if it's in the best interest of your kid, like you're the one who can make that judgment call. And I think as educators, sometimes we can be good sounding boards for parents too, or if they're unsure of like what even options do I have out there to turn off access to things after a certain time, or what other things have you heard of that can be helpful. I think the more that we can help parents in that arena, the better. I don't know if I was always the best steward of that information when I was in the classroom, but now when I'm sitting on this side of things, and this chapter was also really relevant because we're actually looking at a new content filter solution right now for our district and looking at all of these different pieces. And I think, wow, this could be so helpful. And so many of those vendors now have like a parent side of it where there's parent resources on how do you set boundaries at home and how can you look at your child's screen or get a report of websites and things that they're looking at. And I just think we've come a long way, even from when this book was published to now. And there's a lot of really good resources and things that are out there. But with that being said, we can put these protections in place, but there's also that key component of the skills that need to go along with that and the ability to apply awareness of some of the dangers of online and how to protect yourself that need to go along with it. I think he did a good job of talking about how you can block all of the things and you can put all of these limits in place. Number one, kids are still going to find ways around it. So you need to be prepared for that, right? The stat on here, and I don't remember what page it was on, but that there's like hundreds of websites that are made every 3 minutes. Like there's no way you can keep up with all of those different things. So there's going to be loopholes. So what do you do in that? You build skills to where students know this is maybe a website that I shouldn't go to, or this website looks suspicious. And even just being willing to have those conversations with students too, I think is important. So that, when students are not on school issued devices, whether they're on a personal device, something at home, or the workforce in the future, they're prepared to shift in that mindset and apply those skills. I think that's how we can be helpful in making our students good humans, is by giving them the skill set to know how to navigate the internet safely and how to be alert and to proceed with caution, so it translates into all aspects of their life moving forward.
Yeah, I think those two big ideas that they talk about, training our family and our children from danger in the nuclear plant, both of those, with relating to that analogy, have to do with relationships. And I think that's so important because right now when tech enters the conversation, we're hearing a lot about automation and AI, and I think that his solutions that keep that human in the loop. Anytime I hear that human connection to the challenge that we're facing, I think it's just a reminder that we have to have these conversations, because just because they have the skills to use a certain technology doesn't mean they're literate in it. And so, number one, talk to our children. We should be having conversations about what's happening and what they're doing online. Daily casual conversations, it should be the norm. What's happening on Snapchat today? What's the funniest TikTok that you saw today? Um, it's going to make it's going to open those doors to have that dialogue, because then it's not going to be a secretive kind of component. It's going to be an open conversation. They're going to feel comfortable sharing. And that is when we kind of establish that openness, then there is a problem, our children are more likely to come and talk to us about it, or let us know that something didn't quite feel right and maybe ask some questions. I think the second example is one that I certainly don't think that we do enough sometimes. I know I probably didn't in the classroom. And I know, like, seeing my nephew and some of the kids in my family participating with children online. We want to be in the online spaces that they're in. You may not want to be on Snapchat or TikTok or Minecraft, uh, but you want to know about how it works. You want to know what the updates bring. You want to know where potential issues could crop up. And so, asking your children for help on some of this will generate conversations. Remembering the tech skills are not the tech literacy. I don't think we can say that enough, because they're excited with some of the things that they can do, but they may not understand the things on the backside of it that even we as adults have to take time to educate ourselves sometimes. Um, Kids can be very, very good with devices and navigation, but not really understand how to act in these virtual spaces. Um, they don't necessarily learn um, to the rules innately. It's not like the rules in a physical space sometimes. And this is where we have to teach them and model for them being alert digital citizens. Not everybody's trustworthy. We talk about stranger danger, um, and it's, don't talk to strangers in a physical space feels different than in that online. So we have to have those conversations. Some virtual spaces are riskier than others. If something doesn't seem right, leave. Um, Protect your personal information. I think this one is huge because this is something that even I, until I got in this position as a instructional specialist, that I learned a lot that made me really stop and think because um, this is one I was guilty of in the classroom. It's free. It doesn't cost me anything, but when it's free, I'm probably the commodity. So my personal information. So always knowing what access you're giving and is it worth that price? Is it risky? Is it safe? Those are things that we have to think about, and we have to start conversing with our children about, even as we strive to become more literate as adults.
100% agree. Thank you, Diana. And I honestly think that is a nice like segue into the next little section I was going to talk about. I think your points about relationships and dialogue are so important. And that if you start those conversations early and about, maybe less intense topics, then when you have to have those intense conversations, it makes it so much easier. And while there's awesome things that can happen online, there's also some pretty scary things. So I appreciate the author making note of that and then also just giving some look fors that as a parent or a guardian or even educator, I taught middle school for a while, and that's when I feel like I see a lot of students using more social media, or that's the first time that they're using it heavily. Some look fors that maybe are some, indicators that maybe something not so great happened online or on social media. So, changing in behavior, withdrawal, change in interests, hobbies, disinterest in things that used to be exciting, or just not even wanting to be online or on the phone anymore can be indicators. Avoidance, or even like switching screens or switching tabs as soon as you enter the room. Now kids do that often anyway. I know sometimes kids do that when they're gaming in class, but if it's something that's severe and keeps happening, then that's probably an indicator that something else is going on. So that's when having those initial conversations, bringing up a topic like that, can make it so much more meaningful and more likely that the student's going to open up to you. And there's a lot of resources out there that can help with those conversations. I know a lot of school districts have SROs and guidance counselors who are trained in supporting families if there's any type of like cyber incident or cyberbullying that's happening. Common Sense Media has lots of toolkits for families as well as just staff too. I point people to Common Sense Media all the time, honestly, so I can learn about some of those games and Minecraft and those pieces and how they work on one hand, but then also just because there's resources there for helping give you prompts for those conversations and look for is even beyond the scope of what the book has. And then on a more, another resource that's out there is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is actually the home base for internet crimes against children, and cyberbullying is an aspect of that. They have a lot of really good resources on their websites and can talk you through steps if you feel like your child or your student has been through something. They have a whole flow chart of questions and prompts, and it's in multiple languages.
Yeah, there's so much information out there and available, and I think that the key is that all schools, all districts have a wealth of information available, whether it's resources or people. There's definitely a team of people that have the information available, and I think connecting with those people and making sure that there's a team working together is the most important part. This chapter is full of such great information, like such I feel like there's a variety of information here and it applies to so many different people and all of it is important, but it definitely feels like a lot. It felt like a heavy chapter, but at the end of the chapter there is a doable action item list that did help make it feel less overwhelming. And there's also a nice conversation starter list to use with children about technology lists about technology use. So definitely check that out because if you don't, if you're a parent and you just don't know, like maybe your child is this awesome, Minecraft player or they're into their game and you don't know anything about it. But you want to talk with them about it. There's a great way to get started. It's never too late to do that, and I'm sure they probably would love to talk about it if it's their expertise. But that brings us to the end of our conversation, and we always like to wrap up with a challenge. So, for our challenge for this chapter, if you choose to accept, it is to co create a digital safety and kindness agreement with your students. You can build a digital behavior agreement or an online community norms poster, which could be digital or it could be old school on chart paper, whatever works for you. And it focusing on positive behaviors like protecting privacy, standing up to negativity, asking for help if it's needed. And then keep that on display in your class as a visual reminder. And I think just having those conversations and making sure that you're circling back to those is the most important part. And then that brings me to a reflection that I feel really strongly about. As we walk away from this chapter, we need to be thinking about how our schools' digital safety messaging can remain more empowering than fear based, because ultimately that's our goal for our children and families to feel empowered when using technology as a resource for learning and communicating.
That's such a good point, Melissa. And I think, as educators, we want to celebrate when our students do something well, when they make good choices using technology, especially. And in order to be able to make educated choices, students have to be equipped with the tools that they need to recognize risks, understand privacy, and build resilience when problems do arise. And I think it's a partnership between school and home to learn some of that. And so parents, if there's any parents listening, there are parent resources here too. Just like Brittany said, Common Sense Media, if you want to set up some of those filters, reach out to your internet provider if you need information on that, because I think that that is some steps that we can take to meter access and to help model good choices. Because we have to make sure that we stay positive so that we can help them navigate this ever-changing landscape of technology. And we've never seen it change so fast, and we're never going to see it change this slow again. It is not going away, and it's just the world that they're going to live in. And so we do want to scale that access. And oh, somehow I muted myself. Sorry, I don't know how long I was muted. My book hit it. um, but we want to scale that access and help them have those healthy relationships. And we could talk forever and ever about some of these topics because I know all three of us are very passionate about this. But I think this is probably a really good place to wrap up chapter 7. We've left you with lots of nuggets to think about. Brittany, we're so glad that you joined us today. It's always great to get insight from the guests that join us. I think that you probably have plenty to reflect on as we leave you today, but we sure hope that you will be back to join us in 2 weeks when we dive into chapter 8 of Digital for Good.